Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Ellen's economics correspondent. Each week, I dive into the morass of top economic news stories and fish out compelling narratives, or I retrieve fallacies that have been accepted as conventional wisdom by the swamp creatures for years. This week, will the American people receive a fourth stimulus check this year? The United States government has issued checks of up to $1,400 per individual this year, in addition to the $600 Uncle Sam started handing out late last year. But while this is funding that many families will rely on after politicians and bureaucrats took away their livelihoods, many argue that this is not enough for households still struggling with rent, groceries, utilities, and other critical day-to-day expenses. A recent Prudential financial study found that about half of Americans' financial situations have worsened 1 year into the COVID-19 public health crisis. 40% say that it will take them years to recover. Other surveys show that Americans have stopped saving, tapped into their retirement funds, relied on credit to survive, and other measures that have eroded their nest eggs. It is true that households struggled to make ends meet before the coronavirus pandemic, but their difficulties have been exacerbated by the bureaucrats. These circumstances might be reason enough for policymakers to push President Joe Biden to act on a fourth stimulus check, or at the very least, other measures that could give Americans some financial security in the post-pandemic recovery. Recently, 21 Democratic lawmakers penned a letter to the president requesting that he add recurring direct payments and automatic unemployment insurance extensions into his long-term spending plans. Senators Ron Wyden and Bernie Sanders say that the funds included in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan would not last long enough for millions of Americans. Considering that 38 million Americans say their situations have deteriorated over the last year, they may be right. But who knows how much it would cost and how long it would take to pay back. That said, it might be important to also ask, is this money the federal government could even afford? In addition to the trillions of dollars that the Biden administration has already spent, he plans to focus on advancing his two-part, multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure proposal that would add trillions to the federal debt and national deficit. Plus, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already planted the seeds about another round of aggressive stimulus and relief spending for later this year. The U.S. government's budget deficit surged to an all-time high of $1.7 trillion for the first 6 months of this budget year, doubling the previous record. The national debt has topped $28 trillion. U.S. interest payments on the federal debt total approximately $30 billion a month and counting. And of course, taxpayers are on the hook for the $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities and expenditures. Washington was already headed off a financial cliff prior to the COVID-induced financial crisis, but Bidenomics is likely to send America's fiscal picture into a black hole. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell dismissed immediate concerns that the national debt is not a problem. In the same breath, he warned that America's intensifying debt problems will eventually become a headache, telling the Economic Club of Washington, D.C., quote, "The U.S. federal budget is on an unsustainable path, meaning simply that the debt is growing meaningfully faster than the economy. The current level of debt is very sustainable, and there's no question of our ability to service and issue that debt for the foreseeable future." But the ship has sailed for any concerns over the public purse. Every administration has introduced a new massive spending scheme that further weighs on the budget, whether it was former President George W. Bush's wars and Medicare Part D, former President Barack Obama's $1 trillion rescue package, or former President Donald Trump's reckless abandon of the federal budget. Nobody cares about the nation's finances. That is, until the schoolmarm from Accounting 101 descends upon Washington. That's it for me this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column, where I discuss Black Lives Matter, currency manipulation, and Paul Krugman giving Andrew Yang shade. Thank you.
Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.